What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Welcome to another episode of Three for the Money. Okay, we're hitting the home stretch here. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. And it's like I say every week, Stuckey, I get sad when I look at it's like I saw Ole Miss. They've already played 10 games. I'm like, oh, it's just we're too close. We are too close to the ending, but that means we have more information. We can gamble. I had a pretty good week last week, not going to lie. Uh, every line that we talk about is presented by our friends at DraftKings. Back again with my main man, Stuckey from the Action Network. Uh, Kentucky got a big win. I saw last night or 2 nights ago against the Duke Blue Devils. So don't sleep on Kentucky and a newfound coach.
Yeah, it was nice to win a big game. Kentucky hasn't won many. They won a couple last year, but um, the bars here were going crazy. Like people, uh, one of my wife's bars, it was packed. So Tuesday night, packed to the brim. People were opening champagne bottles, spraying them all over each other for a regular season game. It's uh, it's different here for Kentucky basketball. It's the only sport in the state that people really care about, especially now the football team is not doing well. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement. It's a different kind of team. Like it's not just hey, five freshmen that we're getting ready to ship off to the NBA. It's a well coached team. Even like in the press conferences after the games, Mark Pope talking about like all the adjustments that they make and what they were doing with their ball screen defense in the second half, things like that. That's refreshing.
He's a
Something that
former Kentucky
Cal,
player, right?
yes, something that Cal just never did. He's really highly endorsed by Pitino, but he was at BYU and made ran one of the best offenses in the country. So I think he's a really good coach. So at the bare minimum, it's a team that I don't think will get embarrassed or completely outcoached in the tournament. And I don't think they necessarily have national title upside, but I think that they can make a run, which will be exciting for Lexington. But yeah, I agree with you. It's very sad that we're already at November 14th, midway through November. It flies by. The good thing is this weekend, it's pretty good. The NFL last weekend was pretty boring. Just the games.
Afternoon games were terrible.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
their
only
four
three of them.
o'clock
They were
games have been,
blowouts.
yeah, the four Eastern games, one for you, have been, ooh, they've been bad lately. But this weekend we have some pretty good games. I mean, Chargers, Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens. So looks like a pretty good
I could
weekend.
see
And
the nine.
college
I
is
could
always
see
good.
Niners Seattle being entertaining too. I
Yeah,
don't
I think
know.
Niners Seahawks will be good too, especially if Metcalf plays. Um,
I think he practiced. I saw yesterday
yeah,
on Wednesday and Thursday. I bet he plays.
yeah, I like the 49ers are what scares me is I'm gonna bet Seattle if Metcalf plays. It's a good spot for them. They get their right tackle back. They should be fully healthy on defense. They get 2 weeks to prepare. 49ers coming back across country. I expect, I think the bye is very valuable for the Seattle team because they have new staff who I respect. Their head coach,
Same.
McDonald and Grubb. So I think they'll have a really good game plan here. It's kind of an all-in effort. What does scare me a bit is that the 49ers are very close to like breaking out and starting, and we'll start to blow out some teams. I don't necessarily know if this is the spot, but like they're going to start scoring in the red zone.
They have owned this team with Geno Smith, with Pete, and
Yes,
now Ryan Grubb. I mean, they fucking destroyed Geno Smith. They're 5-0 against them.
yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, the first time they played, Seattle was in a bad spot. I mean, it was a short week after a short week before that. They had all kinds of injuries. They were missing four defensive starters. Um, their right tackle. So they should be in better shape. And this version of Seattle isn't the same defense, at least schematically, that Shanahan would just rip up. But the 49ers are close. Like they're going to start scoring in the red zone. And then this is usually when they turn it on. But they just, as of right now, they're just not doing all the little things, which is preventing them from really blowing anybody out. Like their special teams are really bad. Um,
No, they're terrible. I mean, really bad is being
Moody's lucky he
nice.
made that kick because otherwise he was getting cut.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had the Niners last week on
They
Sunday
should have won by
morning.
30. I
I
mean,
know, but you can feel it early with them when it's like, something's a little off. I do think adding McCaffrey back, and he looks pretty good. And even his quotes, like, I feel fine, ready to go. We didn't treat him any different. I that addition to go with Mason, if you get him healthy, it's a pretty good 1-2 combination. Juwan Jennings being back is a game changer for them. But yeah, something's just been a little off. One thing will be interesting against Seattle is Bosa, who, looked like Lawrence Taylor in that Seattle game. He got hurt in practice last week. He had a hip pointer, and even he said it was like really, really uncomfortable. He's never really had that injury before, and he was a little off in the Tampa game. No, so I mean, if he's 100% healthy, he's just a menace for Seattle. And for
yeah,
whatever reason, like you can watch games with Geno. This year's a bad example because Geno's played just kind of turned into a pumpkin against some good teams. Like looked really bad in big spots against the Rams, against the Bills, against the Niners. But you can watch him and like go, damn, Geno looks excellent. And then against the Niners, he looks like a guy that everyone used to make fun of. So
yeah,
like if they get a capable quarterback, DK is just a problem. I don't care. The Niners have good DBs, but that's a tough cover. But if he plays shitty like he did in that game at home on Thursday, like they just have no shot. They have no shot. And
yeah. Agreed.
I feel bad. Like I've been rooting for Ryan Grubb for a while. They show some clips sometimes when he's coaching, his hands go over his head when Geno does something dumb. It's like they're a team. We talk about a lot of these teams about looking for a quarterback this offseason, whether it's trading up in the draft or doing something bold. Like to me, they're a team to keep an eye on. I mean, their GM sniffed around when he had Russell Wilson. Remember, he tried to trade him to the Browns for Josh Allen. Like, if you're like, oh damn, they've traded up to number 2 to get Cam Ward, which might be crazy or whatever, but they're eventually going to do something bold.
Yeah, I agree. I think with this staff too, that kind of would fit their MO. But for this weekend, yeah, Metcalf he's paramount. The Seahawks don't have a shot without him against the 49ers. I mean, almost against most teams, but especially the 49ers. You need his explosiveness. He still leads the NFL in deep targets, and he's missed the past couple of games. And then his ability to take the top off the defense opens up everything else. Without him, it's a mess. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on.
Let's just dive right into some of the main events. I mean, like you said, we have some fantastic matchups on paper today. I mean, these could be Super Bowl defining matchups, right? When it comes to seedings, I would it just hit me. If you were the Bills, you would rather have the Chiefs win that game in dramatic fashion, so they're still 9-0 and they still have a buffer over you, than lose that game and then you lose 2 straight games. All of a sudden, you have the same record as the Buffalo Bills, and depending on what happens with the Steelers, all of a sudden you're looking at the Chiefs. You've had this great season. You have the same amount of losses if you were to lose in Buffalo as potentially Pittsburgh and obviously Buffalo. And it'd be a problem. But now it's like, even if you lose this game, like whatever, we still got a little buffer, which actually is good for Buffalo, who needs to keep winning for the seeding. I think I told you last week clearly, and I think everyone agrees, this team is it's hard to be critical of them because it's fucking when's the last time they lost? Christmas Eve
to the Raiders. Yeah.
yeah. And I think over 15 they've won 15 straight games, right, including the
Yeah.
playoffs. I heard Nick Wright say this, they've been an underdog in 5 of those. The Niners is a good example, obviously twice, all those, the Bills and the Ravens playoff games, and then in this game. But I actually, in a weird way, don't view it as disrespect. I don't think anyone thinks they're not like some in the midst of their dynasty. They're just a flawed, great, like they have some issues. They struggle to score. And I think we all saw that coming in the Buffalo game, or I mean, in the Denver game, that this is a pretty good spot for Denver. Now, I didn't think it would be that close, but they, great play at the end. My take on this, like, I kind of just think, are they more likely to pull out this game and then lose to Carolina or some crazy game, or are they just inevitably just going to lose to a good team, right? Because if they lose to a good team, then I throw away my theory of them losing to Carolina the following week, right? I bet you are with me on that. But like this does feel like a spot at Buffalo. I don't know. Buffalo's played them well before in the regular season. Like, yeah, I can see them losing. So I mean, I don't love -2.5. I wish it was a little like one, but I don't know. I just feel like if you tell me Buffalo wins this game like 30-20, I think that's pretty realistic. And I don't even think that's an indictment on the Chiefs. I still like them to have a very good chance to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I had the Bills circled here for this game to beat the Chiefs, but look, I bet the 49ers -1 when we talked about that against the Chiefs, and I would bet it again. I mean, that all the receivers got hurt in the beginning of the game. That closed -2.5. And now you're talking the Bills are -2. I had the 49ers power rated ahead of the Bills. And the Bills are dealing with injuries ahead of time. We know about the injuries now, which is very concerning because I do think, I mean, this Chiefs team, it's like that they can't keep getting away with this. They've won 6 or 7 one-possession games. They beat the Bucks in overtime. You win that coin toss. You beat the Broncos on a blocked field. What is this? The MAC midweek
Did
action.
you see the stat like them compared to I think it was like the '07 Pats that they through, early November already have more close games than that team did all
Yes.
season long.
Yep. Yep. I mean, you go back, and they've also benefited from a ton of injuries, like teams losing offensive linemen. This 49ers losing all their receivers. They played the Bucks without Godwin and Evans. I mean, I could go on and on and on.
I do think the
Um,
49ers are a bad example though because they fucking always beat them. They beat them
that's
in
true,
multiple
but the
Super Bowls.
49ers
They
have
beat
no
them in the regular
chance
season.
with you lose
Yeah.
all your receivers, and then what your game plan was that too. Like your game plan goes out the window. They just had no chance. Where I think that matters is that I think the Chiefs secondary is very vulnerable, and not many people are aware because if you look at the numbers, they look really good. But they lost L'Jarius Sneed in the offseason. Then they lost Jalen Watson, who's playing as one of the best corners in the NFL, and his backup is terrible. So your secondary now, I think, is extremely vulnerable if you play a competent, fully healthy passing attack, which I mean they haven't since Burrow. Um, Burrow tore them apart. I mean, even the Falcons were moving the ball on them and should have won. I mean, they had 2 starting offensive linemen get hurt in the first half of that game. So I think the secondary is very vulnerable. So I'm like Josh Allen, this is the spot. But the problem is the Bills aren't fully healthy. You're going to be without Coleman, and we're recording this on a Thursday. Kincaid is trending toward not playing, and Amari Cooper might not play, and if he does, he's going to have a cast. And then your starting right tackle, Spencer Brown, is dealing with swelling, and he doesn't know if he's going to go. And that's the key, is that you have to be able to protect, and the Bills have a really good pass protecting unit up front. But if they don't have the right tackle, the drop off this replacement is pretty big. And then you don't have Kincaid, you don't have Cooper, you don't have Coleman. I mean, what are we doing here? And this line's 2.5, and you're going up against the Chiefs, who are 12-1-1 against the spread under Mahomes is an underdog. 12-1-1. Pretty remarkable. The only loss, oddly enough, as you alluded to, was against the Bills 2 years ago when the Bills were, I think, -2 in Kansas City and won 24-20. But I can't get here. I wanted to bet the Bills. I think the Bills win if they're relatively healthy. But I have to keep an eye on the injury report because if they're without Kincaid, Coleman, Cooper, and their right tackle, and the Chiefs' run D, I think, is legitimately and realistically improved. It's tough to go against Mahomes laying 2.5 here.
That one, the Cooper injury, obviously, it was a plug and play player who's really good, and then he hurts his wrist and just kind of been MIA. Is not an ideal situation for them, right?
Yeah, and if he plays with a cast and he can't catch Allen's rockets, like I don't know, it's tough. So I agree with you though. If the Bills win, I mean, if the Chiefs win, the spot is next week.
Yeah.
Panthers off the bye. I mean,
Do you think that
talk
number
about
would be bigger in the Jags at the Lions right now, plus 13 on DraftKings? It's right the biggest line of the year. Does that line eclipse that, or not really? Because the Chiefs
let me see what I
scoring
make
is
it. Probably not because it's in the
it's
Chiefs
Carolina.
offense.
Could you see that being like 11,
Let's
12?
see. I mean, the Chiefs, it's hard. Like the Chiefs, and then it's like not indoor. Let's see. Panthers are coming off a bye. I would make it. Yeah, somewhere around 10.5,
Yeah.
10.5, 11.
Okay, you've made me nervous on the Bills. The injuries are a problem. Let's go to the other heavyweight fight. You've taught me this over the years. This is just primetime Tomlin at home as a dog. I mean, you watch them last week, and really since Russell's been there, there just can't really be argued. There's just a new element to their passing game. He's more willing to throw it to. I mean, George Pickens has dominated since he's got in the game winner to Mike Williams, who just showed up. They lose Highsmith, but they had just traded like that. I think that Preston Smith trade for nothing. Actually, they got to feel a lot better about that coming into
Sure.
this week, right?
Yeah.
And this game is just their records are kind of whether they were both 0-0 or whether this was week 17 and they were 16-0 each. It doesn't matter. I mean, this thing's going to be a fucking war zone. I just, how do you not take the Steelers +3 in this spot? I mean, the Ravens' pass defense has been atrocious. The one thing with the Steelers that Russell got there, their running backs have looked really dynamic. I feel like since I don't know if they're a little healthier. Najee, I think, played the best football of his career like these last 4 weeks. Jalen clearly looks healthy. You know better than anyone. It is hard. The one thing the Ravens do is play well against the run. But I would imagine Russell's lollipops outside the numbers, like they're going to be pretty aggressive. I don't know if it's quite Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but throwing the ball is something that they definitely feel more confident doing. This is a huge game for Baltimore, right? Because if the Steelers win and essentially they have 2 losses and they beat you and you got 4, I'm obviously very confident that the Ravens probably end up being the 5 seed. I guess depending on what happens with the Chargers, it could be the 6, but be a big spot because of that Raider game would really come back to bite you in the ass. I think there's added motivation here for Baltimore, just given the record, let alone obviously the opponent and your bitter rivalry. But I like the Steelers +3. Honestly, I kind of like them to win this game.
Yeah, I can't blame him for taking the points here. Tomlin is a home dog in his career, 26-1 against the spread. And if you look at this rivalry, since Harbaugh arrived in Baltimore in 2008, in this matchup, when either team is favored by 3 or more, the favorite has gone 2-18-3 against the spread. That's
Say that one more time.
10%. Two wins, 18 losses, and 3 pushes
Jesus.
as a favorite or 3 and more. That's a 10% cover rate. So underdogs of 3 or more in this matchup since 2008 of at least a field goal, 18-2-3. Harbaugh himself as a favorite of 3 or more is 0-10-2. He's never covered as a favorite of 3 or more. And if you look at this, how close this matchup has been, they played 32 regular season games since Harbaugh has arrived. 26 have been decided by 1 possession, over half by 3 or less. Over those 32 games, they're separated by 12 total points. Average score 19.6 to 19.2. There's
That's
so much
crazy.
familiarity. Yeah, it's insane. There's so much familiarity. There's so much hate. And just always finds a way to be close. Lamar Jackson has also struggled against the Steelers more than any other team.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they have, I mean, they're number one, there's familiarity. So like his speed is not gonna
Shock them.
shot like that's Lamar's record versus the NFC is so good. The the Steelers usually have a good defensive game plan. They also have a really good defensive game plans for mobile quarterbacks, which you saw last week against Daniels, who didn't really do much. He had his worst game of his career. I mean, the score won't show it, but he didn't do much in that game. Lamar's 1-3. He's missed some games with injuries, but he's 1-3 against the Steelers. 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 5 fumbles, 59% completion rate, 66 passer rating, sacked 20 times. So you also have those. Highsmith will be missed a bit, but they do have some depth there. And like you mentioned, they added Smith. But his loss does hurt a bit, but you have those edge rushers
He's
who
good.
can
I
really
mean,
get after
he
quarterback.
might be the best second rusher in the league. You know,
Yeah. So that's not immaterial, but yeah, they know how to get after quarterbacks and they know how to blitz mobile quarterbacks. So yeah, they seem to have Lamar's number. Now, I will say, so I wouldn't blame you for taking the points here, and I'm a Ravens fan. I also like the under. I think this is too high for a Ravens Steelers game at like 48 and a half, 49. The Ravens offense is like it's trending towards best of all time territory. But like I just mentioned, Steelers know how to defend this offense, and the Ravens, they have the best run defense in the NFL. That's like what the Steelers want to base everything off of. And the Ravens have major issues in the secondary, particularly at safety and on the back end defending in the middle of the field. The Steelers don't throw over the middle of the field. Like Russ is just there's just nothing there. It's a void. They just try to run the ball and then toss it down the sidelines. It's not the most sustainable offense. They've been really good hitting those long, deep shots, but that's not been the Ravens' weakness down the sidelines. It's like, but it's on the note, which does scare me a bit, is that Kyle Hamilton. We don't know if he's going to play. He's one of the best defenders in the NFL. You can use him at safety. They use him at edge, linebacker, slot, corner. So he would be missed, but I think that this high stakes, a lot of familiarity. I think this total is too high, even with how well the Ravens offense has played and how well the Steelers offense has played of late. I think this game will probably be in the low 20s. Like I'm going to say like 23-20 somebody.
well, Hamilton, who I think if as we're sitting here today, I think it would be safe to assume he doesn't play. Is that fair?
Yeah. He
He's
didn't
their second
practice
leading.
yesterday. Today's a big day.
He's their second leading tackler. And you could say, well, their secondary's terrible. He makes a lot, but he clearly plays near the line of scrimmage a lot and is just an excellent player around the line. I mean, he's an incredible open field tackler. He can shift essentially into a linebacker, and he's essentially the second linebacker with Roquan Smith a lot in the run game. So you remove him, Patrick Queen is now on the Steelers, right? Does that change their ability to stop the run against a team that has been running the ball pretty effectively? Like that, is that a little, advantage Steelers with him out of the game?
Yeah, it'll hurt. It hurts in a multitude of ways. Just not having him on the field. He's just such a playmaker, like defending screens, rushing the passer. Like
He's a
it's
stud. I
just
mean, he's like a Hall
yeah,
of Famer.
yeah. So that's certainly something to watch. But taking the points, just what you do in this matchup.
Do you think this
Tomlin is a home dog too. It's
if
just what you
Tomlin
do.
if they win this game, they just win this game? Would you feel confident to say the Ravens are probably not going to win the division, or do you think it's still there's a lot of football left to be played and you don't totally trust Russ, or is that pretty big insurmountable couple games?
No, I think that they would still a pretty good shot. I mean, the Steelers, their their schedule now gets difficult. I mean, they've played some clowns all year. And like now they play all their division games now. So you have the Bengals twice, the Ravens twice, you have the
No
Browns
Deshaun Watson.
twice, which yeah, won't be easy rivalry game. And then your non-divisional games are at Philly and home against the Chiefs. So it's not an easy
Is
road.
Chiefs game the last game of the season?
No, second to last, which
Okay,
is
so the
not
Chiefs still playing.
Chiefs probably still playing for something. Um, that game's on Netflix, by the way. And on
Was that Christmas?
Christmas, yeah. So yeah, I don't think they're completely done because they'll also get them back. They'll get the cheat. Um, they'll get the Ravens. They'll get the Ravens will get the Steelers at home later in
Yeah.
the year, the game before that Chiefs game. So yeah, they won't be completely done. This Steelers schedule is brutal the rest of the way.
Okay, I felt pretty good about this. I don't I gotta be careful with these, but I got pretty aggressive on a little afternoon parlay last Sunday, and it was I felt pretty good about the Eagles killing the Cowboys. About noon my time. And I was looking at that Jets Cardinal line. I'm like, I'm just shorting the Jets. I don't know. Like, I didn't expect the Cardinals to look that good. I didn't even, hell, you don't even know quite what you're going to get. Maybe they are just good this year. But I was like, I'm going to hammer Cardinals, Eagles. Let's fucking roll. And it was awesome. It felt good.
No sweat.
No sweat. I mean, that's as good. Honestly, it's not even. It's fun once the money comes in, but I do like a little action.
Oh yeah,
About
of course.
I like being on the edge of my seat, and I was not. LSU did that to me on Saturday night. It's like it was over before I could even have any fun. It just makes you mad. But
Yep.
I do think the philosophy moving forward, if you're just like, unless you're the, let's say, Panthers, Giants, this version of Cowboys, there might be 4 or 5 teams that I would just stay away. But basically, anyone else, if you're giving me like over a touchdown, the Colts, and I listen, Anthony Richardson's back. Why couldn't Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor? Why doesn't Shane Steichen just steal the Malik Willis Green Bay Packers week 2 game plan and just go, these guys are going to have a combined 35 carries and we're going to shove it down the Jets' throat? I just don't see how you don't hammer the Colts here in this spot. Like, I'm just betting against the Jets. And I think if you had done that, someone DM me said that he did it in the preseason because they were favored in like 13 of the 17 games or whatever, and he put $100 on every one in August, and he's up like $700. So it's like I just think if you just take the logic, just bet against the Jets. So you could argue that's one of my favorite bets on the board is Colts +4 at the Jets, who I don't know if they went 1-2-3 Cancun, but they feel like you get down 7-0. They got quit written all over them.
Yeah, I played the Jets last week. One of the worst NFL bets I've ever made, and they looked like they quit. They put 26 missed tackles. That was I it's
Well, their
dominant.
defense is objectively bad, right?
Yeah, their defensive front is way worse. They've line injuries at linebacker. I think that the change to Anthony Richardson, who one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks I've ever seen, is a positive for this particular matchup. And because the Colts, if you look at the data, the Colts run game is so much more efficient when Richardson is in the game at quarterback compared to Flacco. You look at Taylor's efficiency numbers, they go through the roof. Why? Well, you have a quarterback you have to worry about that can run, not the statue of Joe Flacco. So, and that's how you want to attack this Jets team. They can't stop the run. And a November game when you're out of it, are they really gonna like it's probably gonna be a lot more missed tackles? And you're right. Where are they mentally? This is a team that was expected to compete for a Super Bowl. The missing piece was Aaron Rodgers, a healthy Aaron Rodgers. Well, that hasn't been the case. Their defense is falling apart. Robert Saleh must be just sipping wine,
Oh my
sitting
god!
watching this.
I mean, Sauce looks pretty bad. I mean, the tackle that he
Yeah,
fell off on Trey McBride
that
was
was
like,
embarrassing.
this is supposed to be $100 million corner. I mean,
It's awful. It's
that was
all falling
ugly.
apart. And yeah, where that mentally, there's no leadership, there's no direction, there's no identity on offense. And now you're sitting at 3-7, you're essentially cooked. Like, do they show up here? I don't know. Um, I expect the Colts to show up. Now, the one concern I have with the Colts is Bernard Raymond, their starting left tackle, who went out with an injury last week, and then his backup came in, Goncalves, and gave up a sack strip that helped flip that game. Sack strip fumble that the Bills recovered. I think he's going to miss. So you could have the Colts had other injuries in the offense. You could have 3 rookies starting on the offensive line and a rookie quarterback, or I mean, basically a rookie quarterback who's
Yeah,
only
yeah.
started 4 games last year on the road.
Do you think that's
To the
part of why they're putting Richardson back? Is like obviously the running, but just if we have bad offensive linemen, we need a guy that can move. Flacco can't move at all.
Yeah. They've handled this whole thing terribly. Because I have a lot of respect for Shane Steichen, but like last week he said he doesn't know the future. Then this week he said Anthony Richardson is our franchise quarterback and is the future. Like they just
It's been
keep.
weird. It's been weird.
I don't know if like Irsay is driving this bus, which would make more sense. But because doesn't seem to have really his bus is kind of shaky. The brakes
Well, do
aren't
you
really
do you agree
working.
once he tapped out and then like Ryan Kelly and the guys, like I do think it was out of their hands. Like I think the guys were like, this is fucking bullshit, right? You
Yeah, I
could
think that
argue
that's
give him
fine.
one
Like
one
sit him a
game and it was
game.
clear like Flacco might not really have it, just go back to him. Would you have played him against the Bills last week? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I or just the way that they handled it. Like a week ago, no, Flacco's our guy. I mean, maybe they're trying to squash all the questions and controversy, but um, yeah, we'll see how Richardson responds like mentally with his confidence and how he looks. But the game plan here has to be the Jets' run defense is legitimately terrible. We have Taylor, Richardson, run, 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 and run some more.
Yeah.
Um, and just if this Jets defense is in quit mode, then the Colts are going to win this game outright pretty easily just doing that. So yeah, I don't mind the Colts here as well. My favorite bet on the card for what it's worth is Browns +1. I think off the bye, you look, the NFL injuries have been so bad this year. You know, one team does no injuries that I can trust this week. I shouldn't say I trust them, but I know I trust their injury situation is the Browns. Browns have no one on their injury report. Now they did trade away Zadarius Smith, JOK, their all-pro linebacker, is on IR, but their defense is still pretty good. Will be healthy out of the bye. Their offensive line's fully healthy. Nick Chubb out of the bye should be fully healthy. You can run on the Saints. Jameis going back to New Orleans. I think he'll be giving some crazy weird speeches. He'll have this team fired up. And the Saints just they're not any good. I bet them last week. Talked about it. The new coach bump with the Riz, but they were very lucky in that game. I don't know how sustainable the offense of chucking it deep to MVS is. Who missed 3 field goals. They gave up 500 yards of offense, and
The Riz looks like Ken Shamrock or something,
it's
doesn't he?
amazing. It's amazing. Like I'm a big fan of him, but I think it's a good spot for the Browns. The Saints have no receivers. They have no D-backs left. Their defense is terrible. And then here's the thing: one of the reasons I bet Carr last week is that I'm like, look, I know he has no receivers. Like legitimately, it was MVS and I forget who their second leading receiver was last week, like non-tight end or running back. But he's not going to be under pressure. The Falcons can't get any pressure. Well, that's different now. He has offensive line injuries. He's going against Myles Garrett, going up against a rookie. The Browns are going to bring pressure. They can get pressure. And then what's Carr going to do? Like, and you're going to rely on MVS getting open down. You're not going to have time to get for him to just run
I didn't know
60
MVS
yards
was
down
on
the
the
field.
team. When I looked up at the box and saw him hit the bomb, I honestly wasn't sure who it was.
Yeah. I mean, that was amazing, but I don't know how sustainable it is. I mean, it's Carr's in a bad spot right now. His offensive line's hurt, and then Olave's on IR. Shaheed is on
Out for
IR.
the year.
Yeah, out for the year. Bub Means, who looked okay, he's on IR. You're down to Mason Tipton, who guy who went to Yale.
Never heard of him.
Um, and then
MVS.
MVS. And then this guy, Jermaine Jackson, who doesn't have a catch. He's from Idaho. 5'7" guy. He might be starting. And then like Cedric Wilson. Like those are your receivers. That's one of the worst receiving cores I've ever seen in the NFL. So and then you're gonna be under pressure because your offensive line isn't healthy. So I like the Browns to get it done. But back to your point, I think it's perfectly fine to make the Jets prove that they care and that they can win by margin here, that they have to win by more than a field goal.
What's your take on the interim OC bump?
For I think is there
Bears
a
plus
couple?
five and a
Yeah, the
half
Bears
hosting
and
the Packers.
there's the Bears and then there's the Raiders too. I think the Raiders are going to go super run heavy, even though I don't think that'll work. So I don't mind like betting the under
Both
there.
interim OCs are getting, the Raiders are getting over a touchdown, and the Bears, that's actually been bet down. It was like 6.5. Now it's 5.5. At both of them, I guess the Raiders on the road, Miami coming off short week, Raiders coming off a bye. Bears just kind of a joke. The Packers coming off a bye, huh?
Yeah, and LaFleur has been really good off the bye. Love should be healthier. road favorites off the bye historically have been really good, about 60% against the spread. But this line was too high just on the surface, like power numbers wise, like 6.5 at Chicago. Like that's super high. But do you want to back the Bears? There's two new OCs this week. I think both are conducive potentially to unders. I think the Raiders are going to go super run heavy. That's what Antonio Pierce wants to do. It's like play defense, run the ball, kick field goals. So I assume that they want to go even more run heavy, but they just can't run the ball. They also have offensive line injuries. In regards to the Bears, we saw, I mean, Getsy was terrible, but a lot of this has to be on Caleb. And the offensive line has had injuries. That's something to watch. Like they could be without a couple guys. So we'll have to keep an eye there. But Caleb has kind of lost the plot. Yeah. And if you look at, I mean, he was sacked 9 times against the Patriots, team who's not getting pressure. And some of that was the offensive line. But a lot of that was him holding the ball too long, him not taking the easy throw. And some of that was the play design as well. So with their new offensive coordinator, he was at Carolina last year. And when he took over, they went a bit slower. But there is like some element of surprise here, even though the Packers, we saw him last year at Carolina. It didn't go well. He wasn't a great play caller, but I don't think it can be much worse. The keys to watch here are one, and the Bears, for what it's worth, they're 0-10 straight up and against the spread over their past 10 meetings against the Packers. They haven't won or covered one time. And they've been awful in the division. Part of that is that they're just at a coaching disadvantage every week.
That's hard to do in these division games. I bet if we just did a study on all the shitty teams over the last 10 games against divisional opponents, they probably upset impossible. Them. It's impossible.
Yeah, the only one that happens is Broncos Chiefs. But the Broncos obviously covered last week. But the Broncos, the Chiefs have won man, when was the last time the Chiefs beat the Broncos? I want to say
you're saying the Broncos have lost to the Chiefs 14 straight times or something.
Yeah, I think it's 10 years in a row.
Belichick had that against the Jets for a while.
So I mean, it's just stunning how much they've owned them. I think you'd have to assume the Bears show up and care. It's like a division rival at home against the Packers, but they've looked. I don't know what's going on there.
They got some Jets vibes to them. It's different. And it's not like they're old and quitting. It just feels like they're young and kind of like DJ Moore hates Caleb. They got some weird shit going on.
Yeah, there's rumors that some of the players wanted Caleb benched. There's that whole DJ Moore saga. Then you have the Stevenson thing when he was taunting the crowd, and everything has fallen apart since that play. And then they went out to Arizona, got their doors blown off. They look like they quit. You would assume coming home against the Patriots, but they would bounce back. No, they look like they quit there too. There was nothing. They didn't. I mean, it was embarrassing. They
gave Nate Davis a bunch of money last year. He's been injured a bunch, and it was being healthy scratches. They just cut him. That's your classic. Hey, we're showing people this is not tolerated. Clearly, he wasn't buying in. It's a little too late there, guys.
Yeah, and I also don't think that they like the players love Eberflus. But last week, I mean, that was one of the most embarrassing efforts I've ever seen from a team. They averaged 2.4 yards per play. That's this isn't a good Patriots defense. They have all kinds of injuries too. That's like Kent State with its 4th string quarterback on a rainy night and, on the road in the MAC on a Wednesday. That 2.4 yards per play with all those weapons that you have. I know you had offensive line injuries. 9 sacks. I mean, that is so the line is just on the surface is too high. And I've had plenty of success over 20 years betting the NFL. Just buy low, sell high, the general principle. These teams are never as bad or as good as they look. The NFL market tends to overreact to these data points, but sometimes there are teams that it's just bad vibes. I couldn't bet the Pack. I couldn't lay 6 here on the road just based on where my numbers are. But yeah, sometimes there's these teams that you're better off staying away from. There was many times in the past, and it took me a while to learn that. Like, there's many times in the past I used to lose a ton of money always betting these bad Browns teams, like the Freddie Kitchens, and then going back
Oh
even
yeah.
further that they were just disasters. But my numbers would say to play them, and they just would never cover. The Bears might just be in a really bad spot. And then if they get behind early, that's when it could just get ugly. Um, so I don't think either offensive coordinator this week is going to provide a huge bump. But I think both could. I think the Bears defense will show up. Um, so I don't mind the under there. I think it'll be low scoring. The Bears offense right now, it is just broken. And then you have a new play caller. How much are you fixing in a week? The offensive line still has injuries. Caleb still looks lost. You have all these guys run happy. I don't know.
Well, that's
It
my
would
thing
be
with
Bears or nothing, but I would bet the under if I had to bet the game.
the Raiders +7 jumped out to me. You got them coming off a bye. You got Miami short week. Are they as good as the team we just saw on defense? I mean, the Rams offense is a little off right now. I mean, they've scored one offensive touchdown over the last couple of games. I mean, one of those touchdowns against Seattle was a pick six, but I would just struggle betting on the Raiders. It's like, wait, you're getting 7 points. Like I little boost. It's like I just don't think I could do it. It's just a stay away, even though I feel that's the bet.
Yeah,
The
probably
Titans.
stay
I
away.
kind of like the Titans this week against Minnesota, but it's like, am I really doing this? Like I bet on the Titans too many times.
Yeah,
Like
it's stunning
the
that this year it's there are I'm at my worst NFL season in forever. Because there's some of these teams that I've been backing in spots, and I just haven't been able to catch up to how bad they are. I mean, the Titans have covered one game all year. Like this stuff just doesn't
but you
happen in the
watch them,
NFL.
they're not that bad. You're like they
No, their
should be
defense
able
is
to cover.
good,
Yeah.
and I mean, but I've never seen this many bad teams. The teams that are just in disarray in a conference in the AFC, which was so strong. Like the Titans are in disarray because what are they doing at the quarterback position? Like they don't know. The Jags, disarray.
Well, like, do you think there's
Now,
value there? Getting almost 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty
uh,
insane line. They
I don't know.
just
I mean, the
lost
Jags,
12-17 to Minnesota,
yeah, they lost 12-7. They should have lost
or 12-7,
30
excuse me.
nothing. They should have lost 30 nothing in that game. I mean, Darnold threw three red zone picks. The Vikings had 30 first downs to Jacksonville's 10. The yardage was 402 to 140. The Jags averaged 3 yards per play. It was ugly. They just got really lucky.
You see Doug
I
after the game on Mac Jones's interception, where he's like,
Yes, that was
uh,
he looks checked out. This could be it for him. I mean, the bye's coming up too. That would be the time. I couldn't bet the Jags here. No, that the Lions have been a wagon in these spots. But I'm not laying 13 and a half. Like that's ridiculous, that number. But the Raiders, Jags, Titans, Jets, Browns, Patriots, Colts, all in some form or fashion, like what's going on with the franchise right now? That's basically half the AFC. So yeah, it would be Raiders or nothing, but it's a stay away. The Titans, yeah, I think the line is a bit too high, but I can't play them this week from a matchup perspective because Will Levis against
oh,
the blitz and against pressure has been a disaster. He's the lowest rated quarterback against the blitz and against pressure. Well, the Vikings lead the NFL in pressure and blitz rate. So him against Flores, how many mistakes is he going to make? Now, you could just have a Sam Darnold pumpkin game where he's just matching Levis and they're just going pumpkin for pumpkin. And then you'll have a shot. But I can't trust Levis, yeah, against Flores and the blitz and the pressure. And he's not going to be able to rely on the run. Like that's Tennessee's able to move the ball a bit when they can rely on the run, but you can't really run on Minnesota. You got to have a competent quarterback and you got to be able to deal with pressure and attack their secondary, which is their weakness. The Titans don't have that. So that's a pass. I actually don't mind betting the Rams on the bounce back in New England. Sean McVay's been superb on short rest.
I wrote that
10 and
down.
1 against the spread. It's like a good bounce back spot for them after getting embarrassed on a Monday night. I know it's short week across the country, but they're going to get a ton of pressure. I mean, Jared Verse, I mean, the fact that you got to give Snead and that front office credit. They keep finding this defensive lineman, and they don't have a ton of draft capital, and they've been able to hit on all of them. Jared Verse leads the NFL in pressure rate. Um, they're going to be able to get pressure on May, I think, force him into mistakes. And I don't think that the Patriots defense can slow down the Rams. The Rams, like the 49ers, are eventually going to start scoring in the red zone now that they have Kupp, Nakua, and and we have a lot of data that says with this offense fully healthy, they're really good. Last week, you get two of your offensive linemen back. It was a mess up front. They just didn't. But I think they got full game. They got game reps. They'll look better this week. It's not a Patriots defense that gets pressure unless they're playing the Bears. So I like the Rams to bounce back, but yeah.
I wrote that game down as well. The Rams defense is just good. I mean, you just watch
their
them.
D-line, they get a ton of pressure.
Yeah, they're physical, they tackle well. But for whatever reason, that offense is just off. Okay, I'll get you out of here on this. I looked at the college slate. I really had nothing. Is there a game that you love on Saturday? Kind of a weak in terms of, high level matchups. If you remove Georgia, Tennessee, which honestly might not be great either. Carson Beck looks like shit, and Nico's injured. Not that he's been great either, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, one thing I did see, I mean, these odds aren't great relative to what you could have got 5 weeks ago, but I don't think you would have placed this bet 5 weeks ago. Is you can get Colorado to make the playoffs, which obviously you just have to win out and win the Big 12 championship against probably BYU. I bet on them. I had a decent sized wager on Saturday, so I was pretty dialed into that game. Obviously, I was a little nervous early, but in a weird way, I was like, I feel pretty good. This team can. I think they're pretty good, especially relative to the Big 12. Like their D line's good. Obviously, offensively, I mean, everyone, Shador and Travis Hunter, but number 14, the wide receiver's good. They're like a real team. I think people are still like, if you just watch them start to finish over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, relative to the Big 12, would they be beaten like Penn State's? And of course not, but can they beat BYU in a championship game if they get there? I kind of like their chance. I think plus 140, it's kind of tasty.
Yeah, the problem with Colorado, and yeah, they're playing well. They have arguably like two top 5 draft picks. Who could say that on offense? And their other receivers are really good that they brought in. The passing attack is awesome. Their defense, obviously you have Travis Hunter. It's not the most talented group, but they're really well coached. The defensive coordinator, who wasn't getting a lot of hype, Livingston, he's done a tremendous job. And if you look at their numbers in the second half, the adjustments that he's making are tremendous. And just from a schematic perspective, last week against Texas Tech runs this, modified air raid, which you never, ever want to play man-to-man against. I mean, this goes back to Leach and even before him. Like the way to beat them is you would just, drop 8. The Colorado plays man, like, and press most of the time, like 75, 80% of the time. Came out, they were playing their man early. Texas Tech was moving the ball, and Texas Tech went up in that game. And, they were trying to blitz some. Don't want to blitz this Texas Tech team either. And they adjusted quick. And then they went more zone the rest of the game, stopped blitzing, were able to get pressure, and then Texas Tech couldn't really do anything. So they're really well coached on the defensive end. And then you got Warren Sapp bringing some juice to that defensive line. He's a nut, fun to watch on the sidelines. The problem with Colorado is they don't win any tiebreakers. So they have to win out. Their schedule in conference is so bad. Like if they get in any tiebreakers, it's going to come down to strength of, like if they end up tied with Kansas State, they lost to Kansas State. If it's with anyone else, it'll be strength.
But they win out, they're in.
If they win out, they're in. Now, but the reason I bring that up is there's a team that's playing probably better than anyone in the Big 12 who I like this weekend. Who I bet last weekend, I bet the weekend before, I bet them 3 straight weeks, and I bet them again. I bet them this week. It's Kansas. I bet them this week against BYU. I think they beat BYU. I bet them plus 3.5. I think they're still catching 3. That's fine. And then next week they host Colorado. I think there's a good chance that Kansas beats them. That game will be really good. It'll be a shootout. This Kansas offense early, their quarterback Jalen Daniels, who's playing like at a Lamar level right now over the past 3 weeks. He's fully healthy. He looks like Lamar when he's playing. Like, and their offense, it's humming right now. He's fully healthy, and this is a Kansas team that's been the unluckiest team in the country. BYU's been the luckiest. Like, BYU should have lost last week. They should have lost to Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State and Utah should have won at BYU. Probably aren't even going to bowls. Kansas has been the unluckiest team. So if you look at their record, you're like, why is this team getting bet down to +3, +2.5? They're 3-6 on the year. Well, they lost to Kansas State by 2 at Kansas State on like a safety, and they gave up a touchdown late. They blew a late 2-touchdown lead with like 3 minutes to go at West Virginia. They lost that ridiculous game to UNLV when there was a pick at the end of the first half, and then UNLV scored a touchdown. They had a pick 6 that cost them the game at Illinois. This team's lost every game by 2, 3, 1 in like ridiculous fashion. They could easily, few other bounces, they could easily be in first place, and BYU have 2 or 3 losses. So this team, and they're super motivated to get to a bowl. They're really well coached, Lance Leipold. So they're going to have a major say in this. That would be my only concern with Colorado. But I do think that if Colorado gets there, I'm looking at the look ahead lines the next week. Colorado will be like I don't know. It'll be under a field goal.
You know what's funny is last week we went to lunch, and I was like, you know what? Let's get some midday cocktails on Saturday. So we went to this bar right across the street, and they had all the TVs up, and we go kind of sit on this like area where there are couches and like 10 TVs up at this sports bar, and these people sitting next to us are all wearing Iowa State shit. And I was like, hey, can you turn on the Colorado game? And then I look, Arrowhead, Kansas, Iowa State. And within 10 minutes, they were like, I could just hear them like, what the fuck? They were getting worked. I mean,
dominated.
Kansas looked like a playoff team. They made Iowa State look like Cal Poly. It was pretty, and I ended up watching a decent amount of that game because they're sitting right there, and we're talking about Purdy. They look good.
Yeah, I was making jokes on Twitter that's the best offense that anyone in Arrowhead has
Iowa
seen.
State came back a little bit in that game because I remember coming back to my house and looking at the score, and the final score is a little closer. Did they have a kind of a chance in the fourth quarter, or not really?
No, I mean they were down like
10.
They cut it to
was like 38-28 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Kansas, their defense is bad. So I mean, Colorado's going to score. But what's working in Kansas's favor is you can run on them. They have two really good corners. Like Kobe Bryant will be drafted and Mello Dotson, but that's about it on their defense. So but their offense it's humming. So I like them against BYU this week. That would be my only concern with Colorado, but I don't hate the bet because I think if they play BYU, which is the most likely scenario, they're going to beat BYU. BYU is they can't keep getting away with this. They're the Chiefs, although the Chiefs are like the team that you trust to win. But BYU, just some of these games that they've won this year are pretty crazy. And yeah, I would expect that game to be basically a coin flip, Colorado at Kansas, like from a line perspective. Will be a really entertaining game to watch. Two offenses that are really good.
I'm kind of excited for that then.
Yeah, you have top four teams on the road for the first. That happens like once in the past 10 years, but the problem is like they're like all 30-point favorites. Yeah, that's probably my favorite of the bunch of the lines that are still around. San Jose State, if you want a game that like
you're a junkie here.
Yeah, against Boise. I think that line's too high. They're catching 2 touchdowns. Boise has injuries on the offensive line. They lost their green dot to an injury. He's on crutches last week. Get that safety. He's a really good player. You can pass on Boise. San Jose State can throw the ball around. Nick Nash. We want to talk about one of the most, no one talks about. Everyone talks about Genty. Nick Nash, he's the nation's leading receiver. This is a guy who can go for 200 on any night. He used to play quarterback at San Jose State. Now he's playing receiver. He's going to play in the NFL. This kid is a player. I don't think Boise has anyone who can cover him. They have another good receiver too. San Jose State, they can put a scare into Boise here at home, catching 2 touchdowns. I think that's too many points. This Boise State team's getting everyone's best effort every week. Yeah. They're too inflated in the market. They have offensive line injuries. Their defense can be thrown on. San Jose State can throw it. You want a CBS Sports Network, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Nick, you want to watch two of the best group of five players in the country. Ashton Genty at running back, Nick Nash at wide receiver. Nation's leading rusher versus nation's leading receiver. I think San Jose State has enough juice to keep that within 2 touchdowns.
If Boise were to go down, what are the rules? Does a non-power 4 team have to get in? Like, is just the highest ranked team, or do you have to be in the top 25? Like, who else would even be in the mix?
Yeah, it'd be the highest ranked non. It's the highest ranked group of five conference champion. So
Someone's
you can,
guaranteed a spot.
yeah. So you can throw out the MAC. Like if Boise loses this game but then wins the Mountain West, they could still get it. But you also could have Tulane. If Tulane keeps winning and wins out, Army. So, Army, if they lose to Notre Dame, that shouldn't impact them too much. If they win the rest of their games and win the AAC, you could have Army or Tulane. And it comes down to like who will be rated higher, Army or Tulane or Boise. You're not going to have anyone from the MAC. Louisiana, maybe with one loss, but they lost to Tulane.
So the committee would be rooting for Boise with Genty. It's an easy story to sell.
Yes. Yeah. Or if it's like if the Army was undefeated, then
Army
yeah,
be cool. Army be cool.
Yeah, you got to put them in. If Army's undefeated, they beat Notre Dame next week. But someone's guaranteed it, and Boise's definitely the front runner.
Okay, Stuckey, let's keep rolling. Enjoy the weekend. The best part about recording this on Thursday, it means it's almost Friday and football's almost here for the weekend. So have a good one. Talk to you soon, bro.
Have a weekend, brother. I'll see you next week.